Hello, I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to do a review of what happened on Friday in the market. And at the same time, I'm going to take a suggestion from one of you to show possible entry points that were available during the market as well as execution ideas. So there were quite a few interesting ones. I asked someone else to review some of them in the morning, and it was nice. I only took one trade here at this touch, this 50%, and from there I set alerts up here in these zones. So this whole time I wasn't looking at anything else. So let's see what happened. We had agreed the day before with the earnings report that left us with this imbalance, and this is where the market closed. So in the New York session, what happens here is that we reach that imbalance. You know that when we have such large imbalances, it's the only time I look at them on higher time frames, be it daily, weekly, or news. The same goes for the wicks. It's the only time I look at these things. As a first objective, I never assume that the price will go straight to an area. But as you know, 50% of an imbalance is my first target. I'm not going to make aggressive entries from there, obviously, but it's a point to consider, especially when it's for fundamental reasons. So, this is the first thing. There were divergences here, as I had mentioned in the one-on-one room in the morning. In an audio, there was divergence with the X. And at the same time, it was also down below with a closure and a rejection. So we were quite in the middle of two directions because of the rejection from Teles that it made, then closure down here, and in the Nasdaq, no. So that's why I went short, because I still had that bias, at least, until seeing at this point that I see here in a minute. What reaction did the price give? What started to happen? If the bearish gave distribution, or if the bullish, which made this structure change, gave distribution upwards. You know that I start reading the narrative depending on what its function fulfills by seeing that this fails to distribute and that there's a flip downwards and also doesn't give that distribution. While this structure change in a minute does give us upward movement, and that's where I remain quite bullish, so well. Makes an imbalance, 50% perfect to the tick, altering the structure. It closes with body over here. This low makes a valid pullback and closes with body again. So it leaves us this high valid. And here is the body close above. 50%. Look how from 50% of this news area, it drops perfectly to 50% of the structure change area. And there are already posts. See what causes the effect? Here there's a flip at its 50, gives a small reaction, comes to this flip area below, candle pattern, and from its responsible fractal, it begins to move. It can already reach 70 tries to give another push, but it can't overcome the previous generated fractal, so it continues to rise. So we are already seeing that the order flow is quite bullish. And over here, if I started to see that my left, see this area here, that was the first one that the price would face. Break this hype, because it had already broken this with the earnings, all this area that had already given us a positioning, everything, and had made a double top here. All this had already broken. So this was the next area where we had the break of the swing point to leave us a swing zone of higher time frame and therefore sub-responsible. That this was already when I sent you the audio there to the channel. Also, that I sent it there around 21, like around here, that I was watching this consolidation that it was doing there at that touch, and that I wanted to look for a way to go short here, but I didn't want to go very short because there were many valid areas by order flow in a bullish manner. There was this one here that gave a very nice entry. Well, it leaves the area, returns to it, and gives a continuation with body. Well, that area was valid for us, and the price comes in sweet to do it. You have the rejection of 1, and we go up to that 30, and from that 30, the flip low high happens, takes out low, comes here, retraces to the flip area, and we go here. Look how also from that 30% we are seeing purely with flips. This time around there are also rejections and everything. So, well, this is our responsible party, so this flip and that one, that 30% takes us back to the main responsible for the area of all areas of higher temporality. And that's where, again, if we want to go short, first we need the break of that responsible party. Starting from here to the responsible party, as mentioned before, the order flow has been bullish from that point. Then we leave our new area with body here, so now we have this. I organize this here. We have this new area, our new swing area, after having left that other one here with a valid pullback and body closure, and we have a retracement to its 30% first touch, continuation, which takes us to 50% of that area on the left, and in 5 minutes, look how nicely it rejects. This time it's mostly that in 1 minute you see it passes with body, but then you go and look at a higher time frame and see that wick, how it respects the touch of that level with body, and then it goes and completes the whole pattern. Like, you know, the first tap doesn't necessarily have to hold, but it must necessarily give us a break of that high to know that it will give a continuation. And around here, the price validated this responsible due to order flow. Look here. This is the responsible one for getting us out of here because he didn't take him as responsible because he had already broken. You know, it wasn't with body, he had already broken. He is the responsible one for generating this violation of this hype. It is this one. When we close with body, we validate the swing zone, but this is the responsible one. So look how all this positioning is generated from him. And already seeing it again by candle pattern that we have. This is the responsible one. And here is a high, a low, and it comes to the flip area. 50%. Perfectly. And then it comes here. It sweeps the first tap to the responsible one. Immediate rejection again when we have low, high, low. This doesn't really give a very deep pullback to the flip area until it comes over here. And here it does come back. So here is the low and here is the high. The 50%. Exactly. Look at how in 1 minute you can also see everything. We see in seconds now as a reinforcement for the candle pattern. You can see how the order confirms those areas. It holds them until it makes a new swing point of high temporality, where we assume a cycle, change, the cycle change, ends up being confirmed when the responsible one breaks. Continued again. So we have a new area. It's responsible again. It's back to this validated area. It's 30%. it continued again. So we are transitioning the areas by confirmation order. And now over here, it reached a round number in 5 seconds. I remember that in the afternoon, this was a pretty nice reaction. It went straight up to 17,900 and immediately got rejected. Now, if we combine this with the topic of Friday ICT of that model, and some of you know it, which says this model, when you have a week and a full distribution in one direction on Friday, there is usually a pullback to leave the weekly candle with a wick. You see that almost all the weekly candles have a wick. It is very rare for a weekly candle not to have a wick in both directions. So that's what this model indicates. It leaves a wick. The work with percentages from 20 to 30% of the movement. But really the idea is behind the fact that there have been orders throughout the week, positioning people from institutions, banks, etc. And on that day, positions are taken out in the afternoon, at the last minute, to avoid leaving them vulnerable to any weekend event, and more so lately with the war situation. So well, that round number was hit, and a quite strong shift downward started. This person who was responsible around here came to get us out of this high, tried to redistribute again, and here when we have seen the failures, when the price fails to make a distribution and starts to fall again in making a new high, is not able to make that continuation to make that new high and starts to fall again. So this is not a good confirmation that the positioning is already being taken here. It was quite linear, quite algorithmic. The following of the structure. They were simply respecting each previous fractal until it reached where the origin, after those in charge follow the origin. And that is their next door. Couldn't handle it here. Took a while to get some consolidation. Like this one here. Looked at here. There's someone responsible for getting us out of here. And there was someone responsible for finding someone responsible. And look what starts to happen with the price. It starts to fight between these areas. Fighting between those areas until you have some bodies over here. This comes and clears all these out with this hidden ascendi, which is a wick in higher time frames. You know, a strong candle in one direction and another one that counters it. And from there, it starts to go, ends up winning the bullish side again. Look how clear the positioning was from areas by order flow. This responsible one couldn't distribute. So if it ends up taking it, we stay quite bullish. And well, here was the retracement to the origin that was around here. Grabbing by minute zones. We just had this over here. First price got to its 30 touches over here. Responsible fractal. Attempted to go, but couldn't keep going. It reached 70, where the candle pattern was here. With its responsible one, here's the responsible one. So you see that the executions just above the execution ideas were quite good, with flips over here at 50 some points over here from another flip. Although it didn't do pullback here, it did this flip. We saw, look at the amount of points they give. So the fact of being able to get 5 or 10 points on this move is quite feasible. Here the other flip ending with 20 something points, all after confirming by order flow, waiting for a sweep, waiting for a tap to that area, and
Only then do I check my flip if I want extra confirmation, but I don't want to be taking
everywhere. But you see how imprecise they are when they're in favor of the narrative. So anyway, we arrive here at this origin that was generated after that ruling from the person in charge of distributing. And once again, the decline starts at the end of the day. So that's what I saw. It was really quite beautiful at the beginning. It was a bit confusing because I felt it in both directions. I was shorting up to this point. That's why I shorted. Obviously from that 50%, and then I stayed put. So once it started to confirm bullish again, what do? I start looking for those magnets up top. So there was the area that I showed you, and well, I already had an alert over here. If it passed the round number of 7900, I had an alert over here when it reached this origin, but we never got there. So that's all. I hope it helps. If you have any questions, let me know. Bye bye.